Hi guys, welcome to my channel. If we've not met before, my name is DJ Starlight, and on my channel I share my world through music, my DJ sets, as well as spirituality, health, fitness, wellness. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, please subscribe. So today I wanted to do a video talking about my top 10 tips with fasting. I've been doing intermittent fasting for a year on and off, and it has fundamentally changed my relationship with food and myself and how I see myself. And I really felt a calling to share with you guys my top 10 tips. And I will do a separate video on the benefits because there's been so many benefits. Some of them I just already mentioned, this whole thing about healing your relationship with food and yourself and that whole thing. But today I just wanted to talk about the top 10 tips. So before I get into that, I want to just share a quick thing about my story with fasting. So I started with doing fasting in March of 2023, and I did a 3-day fast with my boyfriend, and that was my first intro into fasting. I had not done it before. My mindset was like around thinking that like you always need to be eating, or like, you know, if you let your blood sugar drop too low, like you're gonna have problems, you're gonna get hangry. And then I did the 3-day fast, and I showed myself basically that I can go a long time without eating and I'm fine. And if anything, like I'm actually better off. Like it was a really eye-opening experience to see that when I don't eat for a period of time, like I give myself that time to rest and clean up and reset. And then when I actually did eat after the 3rd day, all my senses were so sharpened. I felt so good. I looked great. Like I had just kind of stripped off like a top layer of fat that was sitting there. So that got me initially intrigued into fasting. And then around the summer of 2023 is when I came across this book called Fast Like a Girl by Dr. Mindy Pelz. And this book talks about fasting for women, and specifically it talks about like how women are different and that we shouldn't be doing like fasting every single day, same amount of time. We need to vary our fasts according to where we're at in our hormonal cycle. So that book just blew my mind, and it taught me so much about my body as a woman that at the age of 35, like I had not learned this information, and I truly believe that this is a book that every single woman should read. So I read that book and I started implementing doing shorter fasts. So I built up to it. I didn't just like jump in and did like a 3-day fast. Like that was something else. I started by just skipping breakfast and challenging myself to do like 14 hours fast, and then I would do 16 hours, and then eventually I would just like build up, because when you do fasting according to cycle syncing, there are times in the month that you can go longer. You can go like 20 hours, but I didn't start there. I started with following the plan in Dr. Mindy Pelz's book, The Advanced Fasting Plan, but I built up to it. So I've been doing that on and off for a year, and now I'm going to talk about my top 10 tips with fasting. And the first one is, and don't mind if I'm looking down here, I have to see what these tips are, but the first one is what I just mentioned, which is build up to it. Don't go into it being like, I'm not going to eat for 20 hours. No. I highly recommend starting with pushing your breakfast back an hour. So if you normally eat breakfast around 9, just try to have it at 10. Or if you normally eat breakfast earlier, then just push it back an hour. And that's how I started. I basically, if I wanted to eat at 9, I just ate at 10. And then eventually I got to the point where it was quite easy for me to break my fast at noon. So I was doing 16-8. And that's kind of like the standard thing we always hear about with fasting. Like you want to fast for 16 hours and then eat in a window of 8. And so I highly recommend starting there. Just start slowly and get your momentum and your cadence with that. And then eventually once you build up, you can start doing those longer fasts. But I do believe that it's helpful to just start slow and just start building from there. That's tip number one. Tip number two that I mentioned is that if you are a woman, you need to cycle your fast. So women run on a monthly cycle, whereas men, they run on a 24-hour cycle. So for us women, we need to be aware of where we're at in our cycle. And I highly recommend that you begin tracking that. The first day of your period is day 1 of your cycle. And I won't get into this too much because there's quite a few videos on YouTube, but the gist of it is that at the start of your cycle, like the first half, you can progressively build into doing longer fasts. But a week before your period, you want to hold off. Like you want to ideally not fast, or if you're going to do fasting, which you can do if you want to like maintain the habit of not snacking at night, I would recommend doing like no more than 15 hours. So basically, if you are a woman, you need to read Dr. Mindy Pell's book, Fast Like a Girl, and start cycle syncing your fast. And it is a little bit challenging at first because instead of doing the same thing every day and getting that momentum, you are varying, but I promise you, you'll eventually fall into a cadence and you'll understand your body better. Like for me at this point, like the week before my period, I won't fast, but literally like the day before I get my period, I'm like, I'm ready to fast again. And that makes sense because I'm going into day 1 where I'm starting to feel ready. I'm starting to build up and like feel good about doing it. And that's the type of intuitive wisdom you develop with your body by following these kinds of protocols. So that's tip number 2. Tip number 3 is eat protein dense meals. So protein is having like a comeback moment right now, I think, or maybe I'm just consuming all that content. But one of the things that really helps me with fasting, especially if I'm doing 2 meals a day, which nowadays I just have 2 meals a day, unless I'm doing a longer fast, is my meals are protein dense. So what I mean by that is, what I've heard actually is that you want to aim to have 50 grams of protein in a meal. And I'm not sitting there counting, but I make it a point to like one of my favorite things is having a salad with chicken, avocado, hemp hearts. I make it a point to make sure that protein is like featured in my meal, and that my last meal, especially if I'm about to go into a fast, is very nutrient and protein dense. This will keep you fuller for longer, and you will be fine. Like you won't feel thin. Conversely, if you have like spaghetti or pasta or like chips before your last meal before you fast, you're gonna feel hungry again sooner. Like you can just try this out for yourself and you'll see. So I highly recommend eating a protein-rich, dense meal. And I forgot something I said I like having salad and chicken. I add eggs to that too. So all in all, it's like 40 grams of protein, and I might even have a protein shake, which kicks it up a notch. So eat lots of protein before you begin your fast. Next tip is track your fast in a calendar or an app. So I mentioned that if you're a woman, you should know like where you're at in your cycle. So I just use my Google Calendar, and I'll track my whole period in there, my whole period cycle. And then on top of that, I will map out like my rough plan for what kind of fasts I'm doing, so that I know like on such and such day that I'm doing this kind of fast or that kind of fast. And it might sound complicated at first and like a lot of work, but it's definitely worth it. And over time you do build a momentum, and like you don't have to follow it to a T. So sometimes I find that I'm like, you know what, I gotta break the fast sooner. So I break it sooner, and then I just note in my calendar the time, I just adjust it. So I like the calendar feature because you can see your progress, and also it keeps you accountable. And it's been shown that if you actually like track your progress, you're more likely to continue because you get motivated. You can see like how well you're doing. So that is one of my other tips. My next tip is that if you are doing a longer fast, so like let's say you want to do a 20-hour fast, I personally recommend skipping dinner. So on a day that I'm doing a 20-hour fast, I'll have my like breakfast slash lunch maybe around 2, and then I'll just skip dinner. And my reason for doing that is that your sleep and digestion is so much better. Like, I've heard of people doing this where they instead will have dinner as their last meal, but I'm personally not a fan of that, because I think that the point of fasting is that your body is going into like a healing state, and when you are going to sleep, you are propelling that healing state. So I'm a big fan of skipping dinner when you're gonna go do your longer fast. That's my next tip. Honestly, I forgot what number I'm on, but I promise that they're numbered in here. My next tip is to use fasting as a practice for examining your relationship to food. So I mentioned earlier that one of the biggest benefits I've gotten from fasting is that it has helped me look at my habits in relation to food. Because when you are fasting, you're not eating. So you're noticing in your mind when you're like, oh, I really want to have blah, 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 or I really want to eat this. Like, you're starting to notice these patterns and these habits. And for me, one of the biggest, I'd say, unproductive habits I had was that I was a big snacker at night. Like, I'd like have dinner, and then I would like gorge on all the snacks, and like until late at night. So when I started fasting, obviously, like you're cutting off your eating around 8, 9 at the very, very, very latest, depending on how you're doing it. So it gave me an opportunity to really examine those habits and to really cultivate mindful eating. And there's like lots of great YouTube videos out there talking about like mindful eating and how to approach it and how to approach emotional eating. Like, one big culprit of emotional eating is being bored or lonely. And later at night, like after I'd be done dinner and I'm just sitting in front of the TV, like that was boredom. And you know that saying, like idle hands are the devil's work, right? So that was just me trying to fill the time. And I'll go even deeper and say that in my mind, I saw myself as someone who maybe was like a little bit sloppy, or like just not like this sparkly version of DJ Starlight that I see myself as today. And because I saw myself that way, I was like, like I'll just eat in bed or whatever. Okay, I don't do that much anymore in the recent past. But like, you know what I mean? That I just allowed myself to see myself in kind of this sloppy light, and then I would like eat late and I would do things that person would do. So I think fasting is like an amazing opportunity to like re-examine your relationship to food and to your self-concept. Like, you are also changing how you see yourself in addition to seeing your habits, and you're creating this person that no longer snacks at night, and in turn gaining self-respect. So that's my other tip is use this as an opportunity to train yourself to eat mindfully and to examine your motivations and your habits and to see what's beneath there, what is driving that, and educate yourself on YouTube. There's so many amazing resources about mindful eating and emotional eating. Okay, next tip. The next tip is to cultivate certain mindsets when you're fasting. So I'm probably going to do a whole other video on this because it is such an important topic. But what I mean by this is that when you're fasting, you may initially be tempted to say like, ugh, I can't eat this, like approaching it with this mindset. However, when I started to get into this, I started cultivating certain mindsets. And one in particular I want to share with you guys is that I tell myself, I'm like, you can literally eat anything you want, including that bowl of stovetop cooked popcorn, which is like my favorite snack, but just not right now. Like, you can literally, the moment you wake up, you can make that and eat it. Like, go ahead, but just not right now. And the reason for that is because I have learned that I needed to train myself to associate my past behavior with not feeling great. So in the past, I would like want to eat late at night and snack on all the popcorns and stuff. But then I'd wake up feeling like food hangover. So what I've done is I have told myself like, look, and I actually have a note in my phone that says, this is how you feel when you eat late at night. And I know this now, like when I eat late at night, I wake up and I'm not rested. So now what I tell myself is like, look, you can eat whatever you want, just not right now. And it's just telling myself like, it's just a delay. You can literally have it tomorrow, even in the morning if you want it. Like as an example, last night, I really wanted these Fritouche chips. It's midnight. And I'm like, no, just have them tomorrow morning. And this is literally how I approach things. I just coach myself and tell myself like, you can have it anytime. And I also want to add here that there's a payoff for delayed gratification, and the payoff is immediate self-respect. And that's one of the big benefits of fasting, is that when you love yourself enough to put those boundaries and limitations on the things that you know actually don't make you feel good, you gain self-respect. So that's another kind of mindset I've been telling myself, that like every time I practice fasting and I practice this delayed gratification, I'm increasing my self-respect, my self-worth, my sense of beauty that I have for myself. So that's another one. But this is gonna be a whole other video, because there's so many, if you can control up here, you can literally make anything happen. So this is very powerful, this fasting mindset. Okay, so my next tip is, when you are doing fasting, have lots of fasting friendly drinks available, including right now my coffee. So this has been an acquired taste, but I've got okay, you can't see it because I'm going to spill it if I do that, but I've got my black coffee from Zavita, Charles Private Stock. It is my favorite coffee to have black, and this is one of those types of drinks that's not gonna disturb your fast. And sorry, I need to take a sip right now. One of the reasons why I love having black coffee is that I feel like black coffee in the morning on an empty stomach, in a fasted state, your mind is just like boom, boom, boom. That's the state I'm doing this video in. So anyways, the drinks. Okay, so black coffee is great. I highly recommend sparkling water with limes, lemons, Himalayan salt. You can even put in a little bit of apple cider vinegar if you're trying to be, you know, fancy. If that actually does help kill hunger. What else do I like? Teas, peppermint tea. I don't recommend green teas or black teas. Well, black tea is okay. But I don't recommend green tea because I personally find it makes me nauseous on an empty stomach. But the point being that you want to have lots of fasting friendly drinks, including water, and like make your water appealing. Like I'm kind of like boring about it right now. I just got this glass of water, but you can have like a nice big jug of ice water and lemon, and just make it like enjoyable for yourself. So lots of fasting friendly drinks. My next tip is to watch lots of fasting videos on YouTube, mine and other ones. And the reason for that is because I do this thing where like anytime I'm trying to cultivate a new habit, I obsessively watch videos about it, about like the benefits, and I really educate myself on it so that I'm like, from a law of attraction perspective, so that I'm entrained with that energy and I'm like in it. But also when you know more, you just do better. Like you do better. And with me in fasting, for instance, I just started out by reading Dr. Mindy Pell's book, but then I went on her YouTube channel and I learned about like how to break a fast and like what to eat. And I just started building on that knowledge. So educating yourself is really going to compound all of that knowledge and really motivate and inspire you. And by default too, you'll be around, even if in your immediate sphere you don't have any friends who practice intermittent fasting, in the internet sphere you will have people who are in this world, this community, who are practicing this. So that's another helpful tip, is keep educating yourself and learning about fasting. And my last and final tip is quite powerful. These were in no particular order, but this happened to be the last one. But it is that if you have like mastered 16-8 and you've been doing it, I highly recommend, and this is also in Dr. Mindy Pell's book, pushing it to 17, 18, 19, 20 hours. Like, try to get past the 20-hour mark. When I saw the biggest shifts and change for myself, that was when I started doing longer fasts. And like, again, I cycle sync these. I would do these like in the part of my cycle that are called like power phases, where we can like we have more estrogen surging through us, so we can like take on more stressors. And fasting is a hermetic stress. It's a stress that forces you to adapt. So in those time periods, I would practice my version of alternate day fasting, which is that one day I would have one meal, and then I would like fast the whole day, skip dinner, and then go and then again have another meal. And then that day I would not really fast, but I'd aim to cut off my eating by 8. So I guess I do it like a 16-8. And then the next day again, I would go in and do a 20-hour fast. And a week of that will like strip the fat off your body. At least it did for me. So I highly recommend, if you are doing fasting and you're like, like, okay, like I'm kind of seeing stuff, but not really, go in and do on-off days of 20+ hour fasts, and you will see a remarkable difference. Okay, so that's everything. Those are my top tips that I've learned from a year of intermittent fasting. I hope that that was really helpful for you guys. And if there are any other topics or content you want me to cover regarding fasting, I'd be more than happy to. Again, I'm not a doctor. Should have put the disclaimer in the beginning, but I have a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge in this area just from my lived experience, and that's what I'm speaking from. So yeah, if you love that, please subscribe. I would love to have you on this channel, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.